Welcome to Hiring Happy Humans, where we talk about all things HR with a variety of folks, from CEOs to community partners, sharing up-to-date trends, best practices, and our wild workplace stories. Each interview is designed to leave you with the knowledge to keep your sanity. I'm your host, Dawn Sipley of Sipley the Best. Thanks for joining in, and let's jump into this week's episode. Welcome back, everyone. This is Dawn Sipley with Sipley the Best, Hiring Happy Humans. I'm so excited to have Kurt Uhlir here today. Did I say that right, Kurt?
It's Uhlir, but I'll take whatever.
Uhlir. Okay, Uhlir. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I was able to review a little bit of your background, and I have to say you've gotten yourself into some pretty interesting rooms. Can you just give me like the 2 or 3 minute highlight of your career?
My very, very non-linear career.
Yes.
I'd like to say I'm both I've been a serial and parallel entrepreneur. Now I choose to be neither of those. I'm a scaler because I figured out where I help best. Mm-hmm. But I started 2 LLCs when I was 14 because I was going to have to pay so many payroll taxes. I was forced into that. Didn't realize at that point what was happening. But I've been in high growth technology companies almost my entire career. I came out of a master's program and joined what was kind of a small company, I thought at the time, and it's called Navtech. They did 85 million a year in revenue that year, but it was the retirement gig for the former president of Disney theme parks. And Judson came in, and when 10 and a half years, we grew that company, thanks a lot to just technology advancing, to 1.44 billion. So I've been part of hiring thousands of people under me and under my teams. But that was kind of put me at the nexus of 11 industries. So it's everything mapping and spatial data. A lot of people use Google Maps, or we've had a Garmin or car navigation system. This company, Navtech, is the dominant player for all of that data globally. And so you think about Microsoft video games, which uses the data back on the shelf, to a car navigation system, to FedEx routing trucks around. And so many industries that do that. And I didn't realize I was kind of a management consultant almost at the end of the day, and growing in very different ways. Been part of growing a lot of high growth companies since then. We sold to Oracle, sold to eXp Realty, largest real estate company in the world now. But I've always spent a lot of time stewarding small businesses, including getting to be the chairman of the Made in America movement, which brought me into the White House with President Trump and a few others. So I spent a lot of time there because the same things that work for growing mid-market companies work very well for small companies as well.
Yeah. One thing that I've noticed is people have a tendency to hit a cap. They start a company, they have a great vision, they have a great idea, and then they just reach the pinnacle of what they are able to accomplish. What is it that you see and you've been able to do and demonstrate that allows you to scale when some people just find it absolutely impossible?
Well, I've realized for myself personally, I'm a scaler in that I do not do the 0 to 1 million, 0 to 10 million kind of thing well. I would not do well starting an electrical company from scratch. And that's not that I can't do it. It just takes so much more energy for me versus coming in for a established company. What I've seen in coaching a lot of others and writing a lot about the topic is I see a lot of people that are great starters. They're really good getting to that cap, as you're talking about. But what ends up holding them back is, I mean, I hate to say this, but they think that they're right. And so, or they're really creative, which works really well for growing companies at a certain size. But I say they think that they're right because everybody at every level in business, sole contributor, leader of the company, there's a ton of things. And I like to say, look for 3 things in your business or your job that you're wrong about today. And here's the thing to know. Being wrong and being right feels exactly the same until you get new data or something happens and you realize, crap, this thing we've been doing for 6 months is wrong. Often the person who's been really good growing a small business to $500,000, $2 million a year in revenue, they've been really good at certain things and they think they're right. They often end up thinking they don't mean to be. They may be the nicest micromanager, but they're micromanaging everything and they're not handing things off to people in their company.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you've been involved in those hiring processes, there's a lot of conversation around personality testing, interview processes, technical skills. What did your onboarding and hiring process look like?
Well, from a hiring perspective, if it's technical, I always separate out technical checks and interviews it's a stage very separate than checking for culture.
Right.
If it's something that's not in my wheelhouse, and maybe not in the company's wheelhouse, I will outsource that. If I'm bringing in a CTO, a head of engineering, there's a certain level of technical aspects I can't check. I will go and be happy to pay somebody that I trust to do all of that technical screening for me. And it's going to be somebody that I trust and I've worked with, and not a screening firm usually for that case. From a culture perspective, I probably define culture different than the way most people do. I say that as most people seem to hire. I mean, when they say they hire for culture, it's really, would I like to have you over for dinner? Would we be friends? Are we going to do well at the team if we have a happy hour, open up, some beer at the company? And really, I don't care about any of those things. Like, there's a point where we should all work together. We should all be, respectful of each other. But I look for culture of things that I'm going to see in people's actions. And every job description will actually say I'm hiring for 3 things specifically. I want a bias towards action. I don't care at what level. I want somebody that has strong opinions but held loosely. Never come to me with a problem without a proposed solution.
Amen.
And I want people that thrive in healthy conflict. And I've had people apply literally, and in the application, they go, I really don't want this job, but can you tell me what healthy conflict looks like?
Yeah.
But we're going to have conflict at those things. But all of those attributes, I could see if I went back and asked their previous managers or previous coworkers, I would see those things in the actions that they described. And whether or not we would like to hang out on a Saturday is irrelevant to me at that point, because I'm not hiring friends. I'm hiring people to help the company achieve outcomes, and acknowledging by bringing somebody on the team, I'm at that point, I'm becoming a provider for them and or their family. Right. And so if they're not successful in the role helping the company, doesn't matter if I like them or not. I'm going to have to fire them at some point.
Right. Yeah. Healthy conflict has always been a really big part of how we define culture, because everything's good when everyone's singing Kumbaya and it's the holiday party and we just won the big contract. But where you really see teams either come together and become elite or fall apart and lose it all is when it kind of hits the fan. Yeah. So,
well, and you mentioned hiring and onboarding. I do separate those. So as part of onboarding, I have everybody that comes to work for me at any level, they all take an assessment called Berkman, and not everybody likes it. I don't always agree with it, but it's like, I have my Berkman report printed out on my desk. And so the main times that I bring it up is if I'm having conflict with people, and often that's me, but I want everybody to come on, and there's a big disclaimer that we walk through people. I don't care. And they do know they're going to have to take it when they're hiring, because not everybody likes it, a communication or personality test. But I'm like, I don't care whether or not you like the assessment. This will give you the same wording that we will all use when we approach conflict. And so you just need to get the vocabulary, and you may get your report. And after your review, you may not look at it again until there's a problem, but that's how we will walk through our discussions if things become difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on your website, you are a self-declared grinder of sorts. You share a little bit of your family lineage with the cotton picking and that kind of thing. And so you come from very humble beginnings. But when you grind, you can also burn yourself out. How have you protected yourself from having high levels of success while not becoming completely depleted?
Very often I did not. So that entire time in that company in Avtech I mentioned, and I had invested in a bunch of companies. I was on the board for a bunch. I burnt myself and others out. I believed at that time, I was that authoritative leader. I believed, and a lot of people, small businesses do this. I kind of believed if I walked in and you were crying, Dawn, that was on you. If the whole team was crying, that means I dialed it up to 10 or 11 and I needed to come back to an 8 or a 9 only. And that's really how I gauge how productive could we be. And I pay no attention to the wake of people like, hey, if something happened in somebody's personal life and they couldn't keep the hours, well, they quit basically, or we ended up letting them go at some point. And I didn't realize how much that hurt my productivity long term. So I thought I was being high productive and achieving, but I really wasn't. And so that's very different than how I approach a lot of those things now, where I really try taking it from much more of a servant leadership approach, where I'm wanting people to be as successful as possible in their individual roles, realizing that my job is to really disciple them and try to multiply myself and then step out of their role and teach them when they should come to me and when they shouldn't.
Yeah. What allowed you to turn the corner from that authoritative leader to a servant leader?
I did have this faith change, but it wasn't the faith that did it. That kind of helped reinforce a little bit of how I think people should be treated. But I lost, I had three big things happen, one of which was only career-wise at the time. I lost $100 million deal with a company out of Korea. And in my mind, I didn't realize at the time, I was still in my early, or maybe early 30s. I thought that would blackball me by losing a deal. We ended up winning it years later. I had not been part of a direct deal at that size. And so I didn't realize, well, you get many swings at the bat for things like that often. And, but I ended up going to my mentor, for a variety of reasons. And I was like, I've tried going to my boss. I've tried going to other people. And like, I basically get the, I don't care face from everybody. And he was like, well, you're an asshole. Nobody wants to spend time with you. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so we talked through that. And then I did what any man in that situation do. I called my mommy, and my mom was the person in the family that no matter who was getting in trouble for anything, she defended that person no matter what, if they were wrong. And I told her what I'm like. This is what I was just told. And she goes, well, you are an asshole. Mom doesn't say things like that to you. Right. And so I asked, well, why have you never told me that before? And she goes, well, you never would have listened before, but since you asked. And so we had that conversation. And then it just started through time with my mentor. I realized, well, if people weren't there for me at work, how many times was I not there for them as well? And I started to realize, and I had some difficult conversations with people that were on my team and that had been on my team in the past. And were like, well, why aren't you on my team anymore? And they're like, well, we had a health situation come up at home and I only needed flexibility. And you said no. And they were a top performer. And so I lost super productive people and realized to me like, wait a second, if I'd have just not cared if you were in your cube, right, I would have kept you on the team. Right. And they were like, absolutely. And I heard themes like that over time. Right. And now as I've shifted, I've realized not only do we all have those things coming up in personal life, but I look back and I'm like, so many like the big accounting firms, they just churn through people. And you look at the divorces that happen there. I'm like, well, how productive is that vice president of marketing, that you promoted, they go through a divorce because you've been killing them at work. They're not going to be very productive for the next 6 months. And so how much our personal does in fact impact work, even if people don't want to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know faith has had a really big role in my shaping in leadership. And I love that you use the term servant leadership, being a part of the United States Christian Chamber of Commerce and kind of moving in those spaces and watching other servant leaders really go that extra mile. I think I have a mirroring story is from like your style is I was very authoritative. I thought that if I told you what to do, you would just do it and then it would be done unless I heard back from you otherwise. Yeah. I just couldn't figure out why people couldn't do their job or why they didn't stick around. And it really wasn't until I found that relationship and I experienced some things and went through some stuff that gave me a lot more grace and gave me more patience and things like that. So I love that you've had that same experience.
Yeah, I love that shared kind of background we both have. The issue that I have with servant leadership is so often, even in faith circles, I talk to people and they're very negative on servant leadership. And when I kind of start to dig in for them, it's almost every book on servant leadership approaches it from that moral perspective. This is the right way to treat people. I know Joel Manby, who's probably written the second best book on servant leadership, but he walks through 1 Corinthians 13 about how to treat people with love. Well, he's clear that he didn't take the Christian piece to Saab, but that's how they grew Saab when he was president, how they grew other companies. But it's like, but most of the books, they talk about it from this is the right way to treat people. And I agree with that. But now I've been part of servant leadership for so long. I've seen so many good examples of it. And I've now done a ton of research where it's like, whether or not somebody has a faith background, I can come in and prove to people, if you want to grow something faster and more resilient, you treat people with a servant leadership style. And like, there's only one book that's even remotely close to this is the best business model. And it's Cheryl Bachelder's book that's out there. So, but I find so many people, they steer away. They're like, well, yeah. It's like, I'm that way outside of work, but I want to grow this electrical company. And I'm like, well, then you need to start treating people differently.
Yeah. Having been a headhunter for over 20 years and being born and raised here in Central Florida, I've done tens of thousands of interviews. And it's really amazing how the same companies, the same executives' names come up over decades of time. Right. From people who've never met each other, recounting the same kind of story. And I think about my legacy and my reputation, and it's like, golly, I would hate for people to be walking around town as an employer, having gone through, these large companies go through hundreds of people, thousands of people over decades of time that come in, they're under your stewardship, and then they leave. And then what is the story that they tell when they go? And so I really see that kind of as my legacy, and of course your reputation as well. But you have a bad customer experience, your meal isn't right, sometimes you'll go back, and give someone a second chance to serve you as a customer. But boy, you treat someone poorly in an employment situation, and you denigrate them and insult them and micromanage them, there are no second chances. They don't come back, and they will tell everybody about it. It's just bad for business.
Yeah. And we have so much of this quiet quitting that takes place now, and so much change to hybrid and remote work. It's like you cannot micromanage and authoritatively lead a company well. People are not in the office all the time. And it's like, if you want people to be really productive, you have to trust them, and you have to take a servant leadership approach to me. Yeah. But it also opens up, when you shift to that and you change the leadership to care about outcomes for the company versus just hours in a cube, well, there's also different hiring things that open up, which I wouldn't have thought about as things. And like, I'm really an advocate for remote first, if at all possible. There's small businesses where you do have to be, I understand you got to be in the office, but it's like, I have a friend who's a general contractor in Atlanta right now, and he was hiring somebody for an office manager. And I was like, you don't really have an office. Why do they have to be in Atlanta? And he's thinking through that right now. And I was like, because I've hired a ton of people from hiremymom.com. And I was like, you might be able to get one or two people at 25 hours and that's all they want to work, but they're not here. And you'll get better results than anything else. You just need to care about their outcomes versus, are they there from 8 to 5?
Yeah, absolutely. We do a hybrid approach here at Simply the Best, and it's really allowed the people to be their best versions of themselves, both at work and at home. So I always recommend hybrid, if at all, if it is an option for your industry or role.
Yeah, well, and if that's great. And I find even with hybrid, it opens up opportunities that for people that have been truly some of my top performers over the decades, where most companies don't realize it. Where I've had people that have special needs kids, so things come up, or they have they just have certain therapies that happen during the week. You start into elder care. I had a product manager recently that moved into elder care with their family, and like, that's a big change. And so a hybrid or fully remote allows that person to contribute and work for your company, where if you require them in the office 5 days a week, they would never be able to take that role. And so there are so many people that are in those positions. And then it's like, well, would you like to just never be able to consider those people? Because that's what on-site all the time means.
Right. I've never heard of hireyourmom.com. That's hilarious.
It's great.
I will have to definitely check that out. We're big advocates of diverse employers, whether it's second chance employment or, unique situations, really thinking outside the box. There's a whole cognitive spectrum out there that you can hire from for different tasks and things like that. So I will definitely check out that.
I've hired full-time from them and a lot of fractional, where it's been great for me, like a content writer, where I've gone and it's like, I've had people that were vice presidents of marketing at large companies that were great, but they only want to work 10 hours a week right now because of the state of life they're in. And I can't find them on Upwork or anything, but I know when I go to Leslie and them, and it's like, I can weed through and find those people, but it still requires the same type of screening as you would for hiring somebody else. It's not the same thing as Upwork. So,
right. Yeah, absolutely. Share just a story with me about a time where you thought you had an ace, and then in a new hire and something kind of went awry. And how did you figure it out? What kind of Terminator are you?
I'd like to say I'm the best. I'm great at terminating, but sometimes I've been really good, and often I don't say often. Sometimes I'm not, and so I very much have learned to have mentors around me to help point out to me and peers that say, you keep complaining about this person or this role. Let's reevaluate that. So because I do look back, and so when I've hired those aces, it seems to be very binary. I either realize in 60 to 90 days that it's not the right fit, and we'll coach through that and usually coach them out. Or very rarely is there a correction at that point, I've found. Or I realize in that first 3 to 4 months, and it's 12 to 18 months, and I've been trying to turn things around and it wasn't going. And I often like the person, and I look back and I'm like, it would have been better for both of us and the whole team to have had them out beforehand. Yes. But I very much I like to coach people out as much as possible and be very open with, here's the issues that I'm having, whether with that person or that person with the team, because I'm on the other side. I tell people, look, we all have PTSD from working for a bad boss or a bad company. Right. And you get about 6 months at the job before, if I'm interviewing you for a new position, where I'll give you, you can job hop a couple of times, but after 6 months, you could have gone and found another job. And so if you're still at that company after 6 months, I don't care if it's the worst boss possible. That's on you to make that person successful. And at that point, I don't want to hear about complaints, and you should have gone somewhere else. Well, so I try to bring that in as well. So if it's not working out well, I want to make sure that person can find something else new as quickly as possible. Right. And maybe just not have to show that they worked for us.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So.
Now you mentioned having been on the advisory board for President Trump. Can you share a little bit about that experience? Here nor there, like them or dislike them. Yeah. Working and advising a president is exceptional. So just share with us a little bit. How did you get into that? Because where does that invitation come from? And just a little bit about what it was like as an experience in whole.
Yeah, it was incredible from an experience. I never thought I'd be hanging out and by myself in a bathroom with two senators, and they're like, "Hey, you can take two of those," and I basically paper towels home with you. We did the first time we came, and so it's that surreal for everybody,
right?
But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, any president from any administration can give me a call, and I'm happy to come back and help with things. So they had a belief from, actually it came from President Trump, that there is only a small sliver of companies in America, and most of them are small businesses, family owned, that qualify for using the Made in USA label. And their thought was, if they can help that small piece of the economy, then that's going to have ripple effects on everybody that does hybrid internationally, or international companies that have company offices here. And so they reached out to 10 or so people and said, hey, we'd like to put on this first symposium. Who should come? And they either mentioned Margarita Mendoza, who started the Made in America movement, her organization, or they mentioned me. And Margarita just pointed back to me when they called her. And so we got that call. And the first piece really was President Trump asking both publicly and privately who he could have around him for an initial symposium. There was a few things, but to hear what things are actually like, primarily where's the government in the way, federally or locally, with businesses trying to do what they're trying to do. Yeah. And it was very interesting. Love them or hate them, I only had one slightly political thing during the whole piece of it. And and that really wasn't even too strange. Everything else was really sitting down with a business person that had run billion-dollar companies. Those were the questions we were asked publicly. Those were the questions we were asked privately.
Fascinating. I know economic development has always been an interest of mine. I've been very involved here locally in Central Florida. Tourism is big business for us here. We're the #1 destination in the world by great gains. But I've always been really fascinated by manufacturing and small business and things like that. So yeah. I had grouped up with our local city, and we went to DC, and we had an amazing experience having different conversations like that. But we weren't on an advisory board. We were more on our mission to represent our thing. But it was really fascinating to me what we were able to get done. Right. We made headways with HUD. We made headway with the Food and Drug Administration and the health services. It was like, oh, you can be involved in government. It's not just this, drop your vote in the ballot kind of thing. You really can get involved and make an impact that way. So I love that for you,
especially at the local and state level. So the federal the federal pieces like that definitely help. You've done that, I've done that, but I find so often small businesses, I love chambers of commerce and just because of the groups that come together, but so often I feel like especially business leaders and small businesses, they only vote. Maybe they write a check periodically, and they don't get involved actually in their local or their state. Like in Georgia, you're not a full-time politician if you're in the House, and so it's like some of the people that I know, like I didn't even actually know that they were quote politicians. Voting on bills because I knew them as a doctor, somebody who ran a brewery, somebody who runs one of the more popular marketing agencies north of Atlanta. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. You're also one of like my state senators?
Yep. I know. It's fascinating. Now, with your background, you've been very kind of tech forward. What got you? I mean, you said as a 14-year-old, you were kind of tinkering around. Did it just always have interest to you? And then how have you kind of shifted that? Because you're kind of out of that world, if I'm correct now, and doing more helping other businesses grow.
I'm out of that world, but I'm very much fueled by technology. And so like I even just stepped out of a three-year executive agreement with eXp Realty. So I help build the world's largest real estate company and building and rolling out technology for them. But how I got interested in, I was very interested in technology, but my initial two companies were not technology at all. One was a landscaping business. And the other one was basically selling in flea markets. It did become a large 7-figure a year e-commerce business. But I was interested in technology from very early at age and just always experimenting with things and playing around. So I'm a firm believer and kind of always have been that technology should solve grunt work. We all have to pick up a quote shovel at times. But there's so much that it's like if you're doing something, we can automate it or make it easier if you're not using technology for it or not using modern technology.
It's amazing to me how many small business owners will have the redundancy and paid labor costs over making a one-time investment in some technology that would take care of all that. There's just like this low level of trust or an impatience for learning. I'm not really sure what that is, but or
we've done it this way the whole time. I mean, back to the conversation you asked about onboarding. Most of the companies that I'm at, we would always run on Trello from a project management perspective. And I literally will have an onboarding board just for Trello. And then every employee that comes in, it may get tailored, but there will be a set of cards that I can copy over a column that's just related, like this is your company onboarding and things you need to do, whether it's a technology company or a retail small business. There's still onboarding tasks. And it's like, but so often, like I will coach small businesses and I'm like, they're onboarding. Well, they're hiring a new clerk. And I'm like, you're still talking through things and tracking stuff with Post-it note, basically. I'm like, there's a free tool you could do this with. And if you have to pay for it, like that's okay. And you show them it and they're like, oh, that would be easier. Well, yeah, it's the same basic onboarding process. And it's like, but people, they need somebody else often to just pull up alongside of them, especially on the people and culture side and say, this is how you could do this with technology.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your favorite app?
My favorite app?
Yeah,
it probably is Trello. I mean, I'm sure I actually use ChatGPT more now.
Yes,
but my wife and I.
My next question.
Yeah, we got married in like 6 weeks after I proposed, and she went to bed. We were staying with her dad at the time, and on a visit, and she was like, "Can we actually do it in this time frame when the venue is available?" And she woke up because I don't really sleep, and I had found 3 giant lists of all the things you have to do, even for a small wedding, and I had synthesized them down to a Trello board. And I said, "Well, this is what we'd have to do. By the way, I'm heading on a flight tomorrow morning, but I can still manage some of this from New York." And so, like literally, our households, because we own a few properties, run on that. because there's a card when you go to Costco. You buy different things at Costco than you do at the grocery store. And so companies, coaching clients, companies, everything runs on Trello for us.
That's funny. That's amazing. I love that. And then what is your take on AI? Everybody's talking about it. I'm sure you're exhausted from doing so, but how do you think it's going to impact the workforce?
It's going to continue impacting things that much more, way more than I think most people realize.
Yeah.
I have caveats, never trust it for facts. And there will be people, especially non-marketers, that will think that, hey, it's just going to solve all your marketing needs, especially ranking in Google. And like, it's not. I've run into experiments. I've literally put a couple $1 million into testing different AI's content. It's great for small spikes, and then it's going to like go away. But I think every small business owner should, like, I literally keep it open on a screen all day long. And before I do anything, if I haven't tried it with ChatGPT, I try it again just to see what the results are and experimenting with new things. And it's not always productive, but it's letting me test.
Right. What is it for you? What are the things that you're plugging in? How do you interface with it?
So in different ways. So we had a company we recently sold out, a technology company. And so they had incredible marketing content written. And so they wanted a drip campaign set for customers that had either churned or never converted. So before, work that they would have paid a junior marketer to do for like a week and a half. And so take 60 articles and put them into listicles of like 8 to 10, maybe 11 at a time with a little snippet. So it's like, here's an email with 8 just value things for you, Dawn, about this topic. And then here's 10 more about a different topic as a follow-up sequence. Well, literally gave all of the URLs to ChatGPT and said, here's the emails we want. Put them in lists of this side grouped together, where write the emails for us, summarize each of the 8 pieces in this one bulleted email, and do it. So about an hour and a half of total work, as opposed to a week and a half for a junior marketer.
Yeah.
And it was done. All emails written, and somebody just had to go put it into a system.
Plug it in. Wow.
With that, you have to read it. There were very clear prompts, including never mention competitors. And some of them were named. It found one competitor in the writing that was not named, and we didn't actually know it was a competitor. And it named a second competitor that was named in one of the emails, telling that person to go to it, and gave a hyperlink to it.
Oh, no.
Completely against the terms of what it was told to do.
Yeah.
So you can't just copy and paste.
Right. Right.
I've used it for that. I have used it for helping terminate people, for helping work through some of the wording on that. Used it with a family member that sometimes has difficult breaking up with people. And I was like, well, let's just go through your last breakup. And so it wrote something. She's like, that's a way better text message than I would have sent. And I was like, well, let's help it guide you through that conversation. Yeah. So, but I actually helped it with a management consulting project that I just did for a large private equity group, where it probably would have been a week and a half of me summarizing all of my findings from working with their 11 portfolio companies. I think I spent 3 hours feeding it all of the knowledge and survey results and discussions I had. And 3.5 to 4 hours, I had a full report, as if Bain Capital or BCG wrote it.
Okay. Wow. Fascinating. Yeah. There's so much more every day that I go, let me just try it and see what it does. And it's done some amazing things for us, but bringing clarity, I like it for just sparking ideas. I do enjoy writing. I enjoy content writing. It's a pleasure for me. But sometimes I just, you can only say so much, especially when you've been doing it 20 years. You're like, well, throw it into ChatGPT and see what it throws back at you. And then you've got great food for thought.
Agreed. I'll give a tip for your small business owners that may be trying to use it. You can ask it to do a lot of things, tell it to do a lot of things, which you should, but you should always add a question. And I do this even though I'm very advanced in using it. And I'm trying to figure out this strategy to grow the company, and I'll feed it a bunch of information, and I'll ask it, what questions do you have before you help me summarize this? Or what am I missing that I'm not considering, but I should?
Oh, I like that. That's
and
good.
then especially sometimes it'll go sideways and not do what I want, and I'll ask, why did you do this? This is like,
Right.
this is not what I wanted. How should I ask you? But asking that, what am I missing? Or
Right.
what else should you consider, especially in strategy discussions or talking through growth plans or financing options? So I had a gentleman that runs about a $5 million a year software company, and he was talking through financing opportunities that he was looking at, and fed in all the stuff that he was talking to as if he was talking to a coach,
Right.
and asked it, what am I not considering? It gave him a different financing option that he ended up choosing.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Kurt. You've just been such a pleasure. I love your up and down roller coaster career and the different lives that you've lived. You've learned a lot on your journey. What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Not to go to college, and instead
Really?
either start a business, which I had, but go into that, or go work for somebody else. That's where you would like to be in 15 years, even if you had to do it for free for 6 months to a year, just for what you'll learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of young folks don't get the value of experience. If I get another, business degree person out of UCF who thinks they need to earn $80,000, I'm going to lose my mind, and they can barely formulate an email. So I think mentorship, discipleship is such a value. And yeah, the unpaid experience of seeing someone operate in a high achieving manner. There's just so much to a lived experience that you just can't get from the classroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kurt. I hope you have a blessed day. If you want to connect with Kurt and learn how to really scale your business and use technology to be able to level yourself up, all his contact information is going to be linked down below. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks again for spending time with us today. If you want more HR stories and resources, go to simplythebest.com to join our newsletter. That's SIPLEY. Until next time, stay happy.